Chapter 24. Jags opened the door to Critters, swept his arm across his chest, and bowed. Cam rolled his eyes and entered the bar. Tonight, like most nights, Cam had no patience for Jags' theatrics. They'd killed themselves for the past few weeks getting the restaurant ready to open. Every muscle in Cam's body ached. He needed a strong drink, maybe two. Then he'd go home and collapse onto his bed. Jags moved through the crowd, waving Cam on. "There's a table right here," as they passed an empty booth. "Come on." Approaching the back corner of the restaurant, Cam spotted Maggie and Star at a small table. He grabbed Jags' wrist and swung him around. "You son of a bitch, you did it again." With his free arm, Jags clutched Cam's arm and twisted it behind his back. He shoved Cam against a wall, Jags' forearm against Cam's throat. "I'd kill for you. I'd die for you." The pain in Jags' eyes tore at Cam's insides. He didn't want to hurt Jags, but it was his life. He knew what was best for him, and Maggie wasn't it. Cam was gasoline, and Maggie was the spark that could ignite him. Their relationship would never be anything more than destructive. Why couldn't Jags see that? Cam looked his brother in the eye. "I don't want you to die or kill for me. The only thing I want is for you to leave me alone. Let me live my life. I'm not trying to be a prick, but mind your own fucking business and stay out of mine." Winks, owner of the small town bar, leaned over the shellacked bar top. "Hello, Jags." Skin dark as night and teeth white as daylight, Winks waved and laughed. "What's your brother got your panties all in a bunch about?" Jags sighed. He released Cam and jogged toward Winks. Standing on the gold horizontal pole running along the base of the bar, Jags leaned over the countertop and the men embraced, patting each other on the backs. "How's the little woman?" "Not so little." Winks tucked his thumbs in the waistband of his jeans and puffed out his chest. He wore a black patch over his left eye where a bungee cord had ripped it from its socket over 4 years ago. "Not due for another month, but I think my little girl might make an earlier appearance. Doc says no. What do you think?" "I haven't seen anything in a vision, if that's what you're asking." Cam took a seat at the bar. Winks filled a glass with ice, Jack Daniels, and Coke, and set it before Cam. "On the house. You look like shit. What'd you do to make our man?" Winks inclined his chin at Jags. "So upset." Cam ignored Winks and sipped his drink. "I'll have one of those, please." Jags swiveled his stool toward Cam. "Talk to her. That's all I ask. If she tells you to go to hell, I'll drop it. Right here, right now." "Why?" "She's the yin to your yang. Excuse the cliche." Cam shook his head. "You're 33 years old. For almost 2 decades, you've been living in the past. Let it go, or you'll end up living the rest of your life alone." When Cam looked at him, the color drained from Jags' face. Tension eased from his body, like air from a tire. "I won't let you live out your days alone." The exasperation, clear in Jags' tone a moment ago, had vanished. He spoke the words in his usual soothing manner. "You haven't seen what I've seen. I know the future, and you know this to be true. Have I ever been wrong? No. Then why do you doubt me now when I tell you that you are no threat to Maggie? You didn't see her face that night. I knew I was scaring her, and I did it anyway. Cam sipped his drink. The idea she'd go anywhere near those monsters? He sipped his drink again. She deserves better than me. Does a man exist on this planet who will love her more than you? Cam glanced over Jags' shoulder through the sea of people drinking, smoking, and talking on their cell phones. Maggie wore a pale pink short-sleeved sweater. The sides of her red hair were pinned back. Star leaned close, whispered, and Maggie laughed. Cam smiled. What he wouldn't give to hear her laugh. Maggie not only put up with his shit, she gave it right back, and he loved her for it. Does she deserve to be with anyone other than the man who can love her like no other? I scared her, Cam said into his glass. Real bad. How can I expect her to love a man she's afraid of? Didn't Maggie hurt you when she risked her own safety and tried to lure a dangerous man to a remote location? Weren't you angry? Yup. Because you thought you might lose her? Yup. An image of Maggie as a young girl sprawled in the back of a pickup flashed in his mind. Sweat bubbled on his forehead. His hands trembled. He looked at Jags and gritted. I'm pissed as hell. There'll be a time for rage, but it's not now. Jags smiled and grasped Cam's shoulder. The temperature in Cam's body lowered. A calming, almost tangible energy crumpled Cam's anger, like a baker kneading dough. A wave of peace swept over him, a level of calm only death could rival. Cam frowned. How the hell do you do that? Will you talk to her? Like I have any choice. We both know you're not gonna stop until I do. Jags's brows lowered. So why the hell are we still arguing? Get your ass over there. Cam knocked back his drink and sighed into his glass. Are you gonna talk to her? Yup. Maggie spotted Cam striding toward her, his face void of emotion. His dark red shirt stretched tight across his chest. He wore faded jeans with one knee blown out and black boots. She imagined this scenario many times over the past few weeks. Derogatory terms had been carefully chosen ahead of time. Despite the anger in his stride, his eyes expressed only sadness. Maggie met his heated stare as he stopped beside the table. Cam never looked at Star or acknowledged her in any way, just pierced Maggie with his dark eyes. Frogs didn't dance in her stomach. Instead, wild horses trotted. His familiar scent kicked her horses into a frenzy. Not an overpowering aroma. Clean, masculine. Relationships had been simple. That was until she met Cam. Usually, the most complicated decision was where, when, and for how long, but not with Cam. The sex was cosmic, nothing like she'd experienced before, but Cam's flash temper, height, and bulk were intimidating, even to Maggie, who often claimed nothing scared her. But Cam terrified her. How have you been? Cam took her hands and pulled her from the chair. As she stood, she stepped back. Cam reached for her, but she took another step back. He gripped her wrist, wrapped her arm around his waist, and growled, "Never run from me." He intertwined his leg with one of hers and locked their bodies close. Maggie struggled for profound, insightful words, but only 3 little words came to mind. I hate you. Her chest tightened. Time slowed. Or did time stop? She couldn't be sure. Cam traced a slow finger down the side of her face. I'm sorry. He lowered his head, pressed his mouth against hers, and, abandoning good sense, she opened her mouth to him. Tongues explored, teeth scraped. Cam had zapped every ounce of determination to hate him. Tears poured down her face. He stopped kissing her, held her head, and looked down at her. I'm really sorry. Nodding, she wiped tears away. I tried to tell you when we met, but you wouldn't listen. What if I can't change? What if it's like this for the rest of our days? I don't want to hurt you, and if I was a real man, I'd leave you so you could find someone to love you like you ought to be loved. But that would mean my certain death. He sighed and hung his head. We've come full circle. My life is once again in your hands. Maggie could admit that she'd ignored his warnings. A small portion of her anger, she suspected, would follow her to her grave. Never able to fully forgive him. A small price to pay compared to living without him. Maggie hugged him, the side of her face on his shoulder. Her fingers knotted through his thick black hair. We never mention it again. Strong arms jerked her close, squeezing the air from her lungs. Mention what? His mouth captured hers. A deep growl rumbled from his chest. His kiss grew more intense, more forceful, more demanding. Come home with me. Maggie nodded. Give me an hour to take Jags home. Still have a key to the house? Maggie nodded. An hour? Yup.